A major update for JiggleGen just have been released, with tons of bug fixes and a very new feature. You can now create hair simulation for GeoNode hair systems. In this tutorial I'm showing you how to set it up and how you can make your perfect secondary animation set for your character, no matter what your plans are to do with it. So first off, we are creating the body meshes for the body tissue simulation areas for the mesh. So we get rid of the shirt, and for that I already created all the areas that we need. So I made all the vertex groups that we need. So for example, the thighs, the belly, the calf, the back area, but also the breast. And all these vertex groups will now be added to the batch list. So for this, I simply select the mesh, the object, and add them to the batch list by pressing Add Object to Job. We can add any type of mesh object in here, but also curves, of course. And they all will be displayed as an entry in the batch list, but only those that have a valid vertex group can be used for the batch generation. So keep that in mind. These can be deleted because we don't need them. And now we simply add these vertex groups to the batch list. So I think these are all. Now we can start off and setting up each entry. For that, first off, I'm selecting a preset that is defined here in the preset section. So JiggleGen is coming along with a couple of presets that I made up for you. So for example, for the arms here, we can use a tissue preset. And I will mark this one as a collision. What this means, I will explain it later. Next off, we are setting the offset. This is basically giving a addition to the selected vertex, which I don't need to. The gain is simply raising up the entire vertex group. It's also fine right now. Here I can add a decimate for each generated mesh, which I don't need. And I can add here a smooth modifier to this area. For the arms, I don't need it, but I would like to have it for the breast area. But before I set it up, I simply copy and paste all these settings here. And now I can fine-tune these a little more. So I put this here. Belly is fine. The butt, get this preset. The calves are also fine. Some smoothness. And I think that's it. So I'm happy right now, and I can hit Generate Jiggle. And we can now, yes, it binded successfully, so everything worked out well. And when we hide everything, we can see everything here. We have the butt area, we have the thighs, we have the calves, we have the breast area and the arms. And everything is working as intended. Wunderbar. But what is happening when we try to interact the body or the character with itself? For example, we want to let the hand touch the thighs. For that we need a collision mesh. We could simply make this the body mesh, giving it a collision, but you may notice, or you may see it will have a difficult time rendering it, because the body is now interacting with itself, which we don't want to. So we need to exclude these areas from the collision mesh. How can we do that? It's very simple. So previously we marked each entry here as collision. And this doesn't mean that each entry gets a collision. This is always the case. It's always getting a collision by itself. It does mean that we can use it as an for the generate collision mesh. So we just hit generate collision. Boom. And there we have it. This is now the opposite of the clove meshes. And yeah, we can use this now to interact with the body. Easy. This should cover now the surface deformation for the body. Now we can also make these for the t-shirt. And for that, we simply add this one to the batch list as well. We can now hide the body base because everything is generated now. We can override it, of course, but why? We can simply hide it with the icon, so it will be excluded from the batch list. And now we can choose the shirt here. We haven't defined a vertex group for this yet, so I quickly make one. I call it by, I don't know, clove. And what I want to do now, I simply draw everything that should be jiggling. Let me try and fix here. Okay, we don't have a symmetrical mesh for some reason, so I'm using this feature here. It's completely fine. So looks nice, perfect. And now we have a vertex group that we can use here. I add it to the batch list. I use a clove preset. I don't need to mark it as a collision. And yeah, I just try my best. And let me show you that again. Oh, it's moving. Perfect. Everything works as intended. The breasts are a little bit going through this area, but we could fix it with a surface deformation here. But for now, it's fine, I think. There's always room for fine-tuning it, so... But I'm pretty happy with the general result right now. Nice. Okay. We have now finished everything for the character regarding the meshes. Now let's get to the hair. For that, I set up 3 hair curves. So when I hide that, no, 4, sorry. I've set up 4 hair curves and I can make them visible that way. So I'm using, well, a standard procedure of making geonode hair. I'm having 4 areas for each side. So like the main scalp areas, the front areas for the pony. And I also have a little braid areas. Each hair system is having, are using guide curves like this. And if we reduce them all like so, it looks like this. And these guide curves are very important for us because JiggleGen is basically extracting each guide curve and making a proxy for each one to bind this spine curve to that proxy, and everything that comes after that is just following it. So keep that in mind because it's quite important that these guide curves have an even distribution of each point. So what I mean, each points need to be distributed evenly along the curve. And you also don't want to have too much hair curves here because, yeah, at some point it doesn't make sense to have too many hair curves because it's too power consuming. to calculate it, especially when you make a clove simulation afterwards. If you happen to have a hair system that it's too extensive, that is using too many hair curves, for example, I made a button for that, and it is only visible when you select a hair curve system. Just select it, press add curve tools, and at the top of the node tree we get a new geonode system. In here we can select the resolution of each hair, like 10, oh, everything is gone, or like 2, now we only have 2 points, or 50, now we have quite a lot of points. This always influences the entire hair, of course. But 10 is okay, and probability is reducing the amount of hair curves. So if you happen to have a lot of hair curves and you want to reduce it, you could either go in the sculpt mode and deleting them, but this tends to be difficult, or yeah, just reduce them randomly. Always keep in mind to apply these settings, and so the effect will be saved for later. I don't need to do that because the hair curves are very well. And again, we simply select all these hair systems and add them to the batch list. So now we have hair curves in here. So as you can see, now the entries have changed. So for each hair curves, we have a different symbol. JiggleGen can distinguish between each entry. And the entry itself is also changing because we don't need a vertex group. We can't select it here. But we can select a preset, of course, therefore we use the hair curves. We can adjust the thickness of each hair. So remember, for each hair strand, a clove mesh will be generated, and we can define here how wide each clove hair should be. 0.004 should be enough for now. We can change it later. The offset basically adds more influences to that vertex group, which will be created along the hair curve. And here we can add a smooth modifier as well. So I don't know, let's try 3 at first. It's always a little bit difficult. So, oops, shoot. Okay, I pressed the wrong button. So I extract the data and put them in here. And now we just press generate jiggle. Okay, that worked out. We can get an error message. Surface bind extrude but is phi curves 10. Phi curves 10 should be this one. So let's try it again. Target containing overlapping vertices. Okay, so let's dive into it, what the problem is. So it should be something wrong with this thing here. Can distant removed 56. We also have the problem here. Yes, okay. I had some overlapping faces in here, which was preventing the surface deform bind, and now it's working. Perfect. Okay, so when I press play, we can see that the hair curves are moving now. Perfect. Even though it's quite slow. It's probably because we're losing a lot of hair. So in the GeoNode hair tab, we can reduce the viewport amount to 10%. That should give us a little bit more performance. Yeah, much better. At least a tiny bit. I think we also have these eyebrows here, which we basically don't need for the viewport. Can hide them. Yeah, it's a little bit better. But for hair, we can always turn them off and they will have a better performance during animation. So, and that way we can create hair curves. Okay, we can now test the animation by playing an animation setup. For that, I turn off rest pose and I loaded an animation in here. What we can do now is simply bake all dynamics. And Blender is now going through all of the simulated meshes and bake these clove data so we can have a smooth animation afterwards. Okay, we baked now the simulation. And as you can see, everything is now jiggling. Since I uploaded my last video, I received a lot of feedback on this add-on through my contact form. It really helps me understanding your problems and implementing new solutions to this add-on. For example, some users reported that JiggleGen animation wasn't working on their characters. The problem is that sometimes the binding of the surface deform modifier wasn't successful, depending on the condition of the target mesh. However, Blender does not tell you this, and the problem stays hidden. So I made a notification script that alerts the user whenever there's a problem with the modifier during the batch operation. Furthermore, I contextualized the console's output during the batch operation so that the user has a clearer understanding of what is happening behind the screen. That way, it's easier to see errors or problems during the batch. Speaking of problems, I'm showing you now some solutions for your challenges that you might have while working with this add-on. If your hair simulation goes wildly in all directions like this, make sure whether or not your hair curves, the points of each hair curves, are distributed evenly. To check it, just isolate your hair curves, go into edit mode and see if your hair curves, if the points of these hair curves are distributed evenly. As you can see here, they are not. It usually happens when you are trying to comp everything, or if, when you're just growing things in all directions. Blender just uses one point and extends it like so. Therefore, I made the add curve tools, and this will distribute everything nicely. Just add it to the list, apply it, and now we have an even distribution. One other thing is that sometimes you can get difficulties binding the hair curves to the mesh. JiggleGen is using a self-made deform, or so to say, surface deform modifier to bind the hair curves to the mesh. And this one is always placed at the top of the node tree. And keep in mind that it should always stay there at the top. But when you use a surface deform from the start, for example, whenever you create a blur, which is a quick option in Blender, it always sets up a surface deform modifier at the lowest position. It needs to be there. in order to be binded correctly to the mesh. But in this case, we don't need it. You can simply turn it off. It might be interrupting with the simulation, as well for surface rest position, which you can find in the interpolate hair curve node. We don't need that as well. This thing can sometimes interrupt with the binding for the hair curves, so keep that in mind. One other thing I encountered is that after the generation, the hair curves are not shown. So JiggleGen has the option to always override the generated mesh. And for example, if we try to regenerate these hair curve meshes, so we isolate it and simply hit generate wiggle, they don't appear. I'm not quite sure why that is, but all you need to do to fix that is simply select the hair curve, go to the modifier tab, and just deactivate the viewport and activate it again. And that's it. It's there again. It's always the whole time, so whenever you press render, it will be there. Yeah, it stays there. I think that's everything that you need to know so far. And if you're interested, JiggleGen is still available at my Gumroad page and at my Survive page. I would be very excited if you would tell me what you think about it, and see you next time.